Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I will talk about the HOA, which says that I have to join their HOA. I was sure the fluorescent orange sticker on my front door was a prank. Some leftover April Fool's joke pasted up 3 months too late. The block letters screamed, "Notice of eviction, non-compliant with HOA articles." There was even a deadline in bold red, "Vacate in 72 hours or be removed." Below that, in smaller print, sat a seal I'd never seen before. A stylized maple leaf encircled by the words, Greener Horizons Association. Two problems jumped out instantly. First, nobody evicts you from a house you own outright with a piece of neon paper. Second, my cottage isn't in any homeowners association, and never has been. I picked this street exactly because it was one of the last corners of town without dues, color swatches, or drive-by lawn judges. I peeled the sticker off with the kind of careful steadiness usually reserved for bomb squad technicians, made coffee strong enough to keep a moose awake, and sat down at my kitchen island to figure out who thought they could kick me out of my own place. My name's Nolan, and I've spent the last decade working as a real estate paralegal. If you've ever wondered what brand of person voluntarily alphabetizes county-filed easement maps until midnight, that's me. I know deeds, I know liens, and I know that an HOA has exactly zero jurisdiction over property it doesn't legally govern. The sticker came packaged with a fat envelope slid through the mail slot. Inside, a membership agreement I'd apparently refused to return, an invoice for 2/4 of dues, and, my favorite, the board's unanimous decision that non-members who refused annexation would be transitioned out to preserve neighborhood cohesion. Translation, leave or pay. I live on Laurel Lane, a quiet L-shaped road built in the late 1940s. Last year, a developer leveled the soybean field at the bend and threw up 90 cookie-cutter homes faster than dandelions after rain. Those houses came bundled with manicured medians, a taut lot shaped like a pirate ship, and of course, Greener Horizons Association. Their glossy brochure bragged about expanding community values to adjacent legacy properties. Apparently, I was adjacent legacy. That night, I walked the new sidewalk until I found the model home repurposed as HOA headquarters. Lights burned inside even though it was after 9. Through the glass door, I saw 3 people around a conference table stacked with binders like monoliths. I knocked. Heads jerked up, some startled, some annoyed. A woman with shoulder-length silver blonde hair opened the door halfway. She wore a blazer the color of wet cement and a smile that felt laminated. "Yes? I'm Nolan from Laurel Lane. Someone taped an eviction notice to my door." Recognition flickered. "Oh, good, you got the packet." She didn't open the door wider. "I'm Lacey, board president. You must be excited. We're thrilled to welcome legacy homeowners." "I'm not excited, and I'm not joining. Laurel Lane was never part of your planned unit development." Her smile tightened like a drawstring pulled short. "Our covenants allow us to incorporate contiguous lots with a supermajority vote." I'd already looked up their covenants online. Article 9, Section 2, Sub C, voluntary annexation is allowed only if the owner and the board both consent. I don't consent. The 2 folks behind her exchanged looks. One, a heavyset guy in suspenders tapping a tablet, muttered he read the docs. The other, a younger woman with a turquoise notebook, began scribbling furious notes as though speed might erase my existence. Lacey's tone frosted over. "There might be some confusion. The board voted last month. You were mailed a ballot to an address that isn't mine," I said, pulling out the envelope. The street number was off by 1 digit. Classic move. Send paperwork to the wrong place, claim non-response. You can't silence someone if you never actually talk to them. Lacey's laminated smile cracked. "We'll have legal follow-up. Good night." She closed the door in my face, not slammed, just a firm administrative click. The kind that says we don't negotiate with commoners. Back in my kitchen, I opened a new file folder, labeled it HOA Circus, and started printing every public document I could find. Incorporation articles, bylaws, meeting minutes. The developer had proudly posted them, and the subdivision plat. By midnight, the folder was thick. By 2 a.m., I'd spotted the first smoking gun. Greener Horizons had filed something at the county recorder's office 3 weeks earlier. A notice of covenant expansion. The document listed 10 addresses on Laurel Lane, including mine, as voluntarily electing membership. Each signature line carried a name scrawled in the same shaky cursive, my legal name forged with a looped-out N I haven't used since 5th grade. And the notary? Signed by a man named Quint, HOA treasurer. I took photos, time-stamped everything, and set alarms for dawn. Day 2 felt like stepping onto a chessboard already in mid-match. The moment the recorder's office opened, I drove downtown, paid $10 for certified copies, and emailed them to my boss, Ruth. She's the kind of attorney who can spot fraud the way bloodhounds smell bacon. Her reply came back fast. Forgery, slander of title, possible RICO if it's widespread. Want me on retainer for personal counsel? I'll cut the friend rate. I told her yes, please, and drove home just in time to see a tow truck creeping along Laurel Lane. The driver slowed in front of my house, looked at the number on the mailbox, double-checked a clipboard, and then rolled on after spotting me glaring from the porch. He hooked a brand-new Range Star sedan 3 houses down instead, belonging to my neighbor, Carissa. Carissa burst out of her front door waving her hands. What is happening? That's what I'm asking, I called over. Together we intercepted the driver, who pointed to a work order. Remove non-compliant vehicles from HOA property per board directive. I showed him a map proving our street wasn't HOA. He shrugged, unconcerned. Lady online paid the fee. I just move cars. He left, Range Star untouched. Carissa had only bought her house 6 months prior. She's a Navy vet turned muralist, the sort of person who can coax dragons out of spray paint. She'd received the same neon sticker 15 minutes before. While we swapped war stories, 4 more neighbors emerged waving identical orange notices. By sunset, 8 of us, the entire legacy stretch fronting the new subdivision, gathered in my yard. We made a rough circle of camp chairs and anger. That board thinks we'll cave, said Mrs. Edna, the retired librarian whose lawn sported a 6-foot steel rooster sculpture painted maroon. Folks in Phase 1 caved to them about mailboxes last week. Wasn't pretty. I told them what I'd found. Forged signatures, fraudulent expansion filing. Edna's jaw dropped so hard her glasses slid. Carissa slapped her palm against her knee. Then it's time to slap back. We formed an impromptu coalition. The Laurel Lane Freeholders. No officers, no dues, just a group chat named Liberty Rooster after Edna's lawn ornament. First order of business, documentation. Everyone scanned their notices, envelopes, anything postmarked. Second, complaints. Each of us filed police reports for forgery and false lien threats. Third, we planned a visit to the next county commission meeting, public comment section. The board retaliated 3 days later. I came home to find my driveway barricaded by bright yellow caution tape. A sign staked into my grass claimed, "Future construction, HOA security easement, no parking." I laughed so hard I nearly sprained a rib. Then I cut the tape, folded the sign up like origami, and set it on the board president's porch at midnight with a bow on top. But the next morning, my mailbox contained something nastier than neon paper. A letter from Midland County Civil Court. The HOA had filed for injunctive relief to compel compliance and remove me as a trespassing occupant on my own deeded plot. Perfect. They'd walked onto the same legal battlefield where I live. Ruth drafted a response, counterclaiming slander of title, filing for temporary restraining order against any further HOA enforcement on our street, and seeking damages triple the maximum small claims cap, just enough to make their insurance company twitch. The clerk stamped our motion the same hour the sheriff served the HOA at their model home office. According to the deputy later, Lacey nearly choked on her latte. While motions flew, Carissa uncovered side scandal number 2. Greener Horizons was halfway through bulldozing the tree line behind the subdivision to install a private residence pool. Problem: those woods were designated habitat for the tiny screech owl, federally protected. Carissa's brother happens to work wildlife conservation. He verified no permit had been issued for habitat disturbance. She passed the intel to a fish and wildlife officer, who promised a site visit the next day. The day after that, a big green government truck blocked the construction entrance. Work halted under federal stop work order. Rumor spread that fines could top 6 figures. We didn't even have to lift a shovel. Meanwhile, Quint, the treasurer/forger, left a voicemail on my office line, sounding like someone trying to swallow gravel while reciting an apology script. He offered to withdraw the complaint if we just sign the annexation forms retroactively. I saved the voicemail. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Hearing day arrived like a thunderhead. Laurel Lane freeholders filled 3 wooden benches in courtroom 2B. On the counsel table opposite, Lacey sat stiff as a mannequin, and Quint looked like he'd mislaid his spine. Their attorney, a confident fellow in a Navy suit, began with dramatic gravity. Your Honor, statutory authority clearly empowers homeowners associations to expand. The judge, silver-haired, glasses perched low, interrupted. Statutory authority empowers them only within lawful procedure. If these signatures are false, we are not discussing expansion, but potentially criminal fraud. Cue pin drop silence. We presented certified copies, envelope mistakes, forged names, the voicemail. The judge's eyebrow created new altitude records. In 20 minutes, the preliminary injunction flipped. The court banned the HOA from contacting us except through counsel, voided the forged filing, and set a date for a full slander of title hearing. Then His Honor turned to the deputy. Please furnish copies of the record to the district attorney's office for potential criminal review. Lacey's face drained 3 shades lighter. Quint looked ready to melt between the floorboards. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Small-town media loves a David versus Goliath. I gave a concise statement. We respect legitimate neighborhood associations, but nobody can forge paperwork to grab property. That's called theft of rights. Cameras clicked. Edna's rooster print scarf made the evening broadcast. Revenge sometimes needs a gentle nudge. A week after the hearing, I mailed anonymous packets, court transcripts, habitat violation notices, and county code citations to every address inside Greener Horizons. Purely informational, of course. Homeowners discovered their dues were about to skyrocket to cover legal bills and fines. Within days, a recall petition circulated. The board's veneer cracked. On recall vote night, we strolled over like spectators to a fireworks show. Residents packed the elementary school gym. Emotions were high. Several folks from Phase 1 shouted about hidden assessments, forged expansions, and the owl fiasco that attracted national park rangers with clipboards. When the ballots were counted, the board was ousted by a margin that could have been measured with a telescope. A transition committee took charge. They announced an immediate settlement negotiation with us. We weren't done. Ruth insisted on personal accountability. Quint still faced forgery charges. Lacey's signature hadn't appeared on the forged documents, but we discovered she'd built a 2-story sunroom that encroached 6 feet into the county utility easement. County inspectors arrived with tape measures. The sunroom got a bright red sticker of its own. Remove or demolish, unpermitted structure. Funny how those stickers shine. By the time settlement mediation rolled around, Greener Horizons was begging for mercy. We agreed to drop civil damages if they paid legal costs, issued formal apology letters, and recorded a declaration of non-consideration, essentially a public notice that they could never again attempt annexation of Laurel Lane without unanimous written consent and direct court oversight. They signed. The county clerk stamped. I framed that declaration and hung it right beside my front door, facing out, so anyone approaching can read it through the glass. 2 weeks later, Quint pled no contest to misdemeanor forgery. Fined, 1-year probation, community service repainting park benches. Lacey tried to challenge her demolition order, lost, and had to pay $70,000 to tear down the illegal sunroom. She listed her house soon after, disclosure statement longer than a Russian novel. The subdivision hired a new management company that actually reads laws before acting. They planted replacement trees along the owl habitat, built bat boxes, and started a scholarship fund for local environmental students. Court-ordered good deeds can blossom beautifully. As for us, Laurel Lane threw a block party paid by the settlement surplus. Carissa painted an enormous mural of a tiny screech owl wearing a crown, perched atop Edna's maroon rooster. We called it the Neighborhood Watch. And because symbolism tastes sweetest when it's obvious, I installed a little brass plaque on my porch. Private property, not subject to Greener Horizons, not for cookies, not for covenants. The end of peace? Hardly. It was the beginning. Our street stayed quiet, free, and yes, slightly eccentric. Exactly why we love it. There's a funny thing about storms. You think the thunder has rolled off for good. Then another rumble shakes the window panes. A month after we hung the celebration bunting, a registered letter arrived in my mailbox like an unwelcome encore. The envelope came from a law firm with one of those triple-barreled names that sounds like a private country club. Inside was a notice that the developer, not the disgraced HOA, intended to exercise a declarant right buried deep in the original subdivision plat. According to their letter, that right allowed them to expand streetscape uniformity across all parcels adjoining their project. Translation? They wanted a permanent easement to repaint every house on Laurel Lane in one of 4 pastel shades, replace our picket fences with vinyl lookalikes, and install lampposts that matched their subdivision's faux Victorian style. They wrapped it in friendly marketing words: harmonize, increase property values, modernize aesthetics. But the document attached had teeth: a draft easement deed ready for our signatures, plus the implied threat of condemnation action if we refused. My first reaction was silent admiration for their gall. My second was to call Ruth. She took exactly 6 minutes to confirm what I suspected. Declarant rights expire once a homeowners association loses control of the majority of lots, or after 10 years, whichever comes first. Theirs had lapsed last spring. Quietly, the very weekend the first saplings went in for the owl habitat remediation. They simply hoped nobody noticed. By sunset, the Liberty Rooster group chat pinged like microwave popcorn. We met in Carissa's backyard under patio lights, mugs of hot cider fogging the October air. Everyone stared at copies of the developer's letter. "This feels like the Hydra," Edna muttered. "We knock off the board, now a fresh head pops up," Carissa smirked. "Then we bring the fireworks again." But this time, the battleground wasn't a rogue HOA. It was a corporation with deeper pockets and, supposedly, fancier lawyers. We needed another angle, something beyond courtroom fencing. Enter Diego, our newest neighbor 2 doors down, a soft-spoken civil engineer who'd bought the vacant Tudor fixer just as the last drama fizzled. Diego had spent evenings crawling through county drainage records because his basement flooded every heavy rain. He'd already uncovered something juicy: the developer's retention pond, dug behind Phase 2, wasn't wide enough to meet the county's stormwater management code. During cloudbursts, runoff shot across his yard like a busted fire hydrant. We held our breath while Diego unrolled printed satellite photos, pointing to a blue overlay he'd drawn. "They're out of compliance by almost 30%, he said. "Any new easement push will trigger site inspections. If those inspectors see this..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Everyone's eyes lit up like sparklers. Ruth helped draft a formal complaint to the county stormwater board, attaching Diego's documentation, dated photographs, and rainfall logs. We mailed it certified and waited. 1 week later, inspectors arrived with clipboards, soil probes, and a wheeled sonar unit that looked like a baby stroller for submarine enthusiasts. They measured slopes, drilled cores, and took sediment samples. We offered coffee, strictly as an act of neighborhood civility. Before leaving, one inspector tapped the map on his tablet and frowned. "Looks like we'll need to chat with the developer," he said. That same afternoon, the developer's easement letters vanished from mailboxes up and down Laurel Lane. Rescinded, no apology offered. But the stormwater investigation didn't vanish. 3 days later, a bright orange stop work banner fluttered above the subdivision's new construction phase, halting sales and spiking investor blood pressure. We wouldn't find out details until much later, yet the rumbles shook loose another twist. The developer had quietly used HOA funds, yes, the same HOA we'd just declawed, to finance part of the pond grading. Misappropriation of dues. Folks inside Greener Horizons filed their own class action grievance. Meanwhile, Quint, freshly embarked on his bench-painting community service tour, found himself scrubbing graffiti off picket fences rather than coloring them, courtesy of a supervisor who didn't appreciate white-collar forgers. He passed Laurel Lane daily, head down, pushing a cart loaded with paint buckets. Carissa greeted him each morning with a cheerful wave. She'd stitched an owl patch onto her overalls for the occasion. "Custody of consequences looks good on him," she whispered to me one Saturday. Life might have drifted back to normal right then had it not been for Henry. Henry lived on the corner lot separating our legacy half from the subdivision's model row. Retired telecom executive, bow-tied, loved gardening, and, unfortunately, he'd been sitting on the fence, almost literally during our first skirmish. He'd declined to join Laurel Lane freeholders, preferring a diplomatic distance, as he called it. To keep things civil, we'd respected his choice. Henry now faced a new nightmare. The developer's push included his parcel as a linchpin for a second access road. While they couldn't steamroll us with expired declarant rights, they could still make Henry's life miserable by lobbying for a county variance to rezone a slice of his front yard for public right-of-way. They even dispatched field surveyors who staked bright pink flags across his lilac beds without permission. He showed up at my door one rainy evening, trench coat glistening. "I believe I require your coalition's assistance," he said, clutching a wrinkled survey notice like a white flag. We welcomed him. No judgments, His story added another layer of mulch onto the developer's compost pile. Ruth crafted 2 prongs, a cease and desist citing trespass, plus a formal intervention request at the upcoming county zoning hearing. Diego produced hydrology maps proving the planned access road would funnel stormwater straight into the non-compliant retention pond, compounding the code violation. At the zoning board meeting, we packed the audience seats again. Edna wearing her rooster scarf, Carissa lugging a poster-size photo montage of flooded sidewalks, Henry fiddling with note cards. The developer's attorney tried to speak first, but the chairman recognized our side. Diego delivered an engineer's breakdown, followed by Henry's polite but firm testimony about property rights. Then Carissa presented a video compilation, footage of toddlers splashing in pond overflow and neighbors wading ankle-deep after a thunderstorm. She'd overlaid bluegrass banjo soundtrack for comedic effect. The gallery chuckled. The attorney frowned. When the vote came, the board unanimously denied the rezoning request and flagged the developer for immediate remedy of drainage violations before future applications could even be submitted. After the meeting, Henry clasped my shoulder. "I misjudged the value of solidarity," he admitted, voice thick. "Please consider me a freeholder moving forward." We celebrated at my place with Edna's homemade blackberry pie and Carissa's pineapple ginger mocktails. Under string lights, the group felt larger. 15 neighbors now, counting new converts. Days bled into November. The developer's site remained frozen, tram tracks rusting under tarps, marketing banners limp. Their legal team quietly proposed mediation to the HOA's new caretaker board, seeking to settle the stormwater fiasco in exchange for dropping any potential easement claims forever. Rumor said the figure topped $700,000. HOA residents, burned once before, demanded transparency. Open meetings became standing room only. During one such session, a proposal surfaced that none of us saw coming. Dissolve Greener Horizons HOA entirely and replace it with a special service district managed by the county, stripping governing power from any private board and rolling maintenance fees into property taxes. County officials liked the idea. It would guarantee roads and common areas stayed up without volunteer board drama. Legacy parcels like ours would stay untouched. It felt like watching a forest fire snuff itself out after devouring its own fuel. Yet there was one more loose thread, the tax sale rumor. Edna's niece, a clerk at the treasurer's office, tipped her off. A skinny triangle of land behind our row, officially platted as Common Area Parcel C but never accessed, was delinquent on property taxes. The HOA thought the developer paid. The developer thought the HOA paid. In fact, nobody had for 2 years. If it hit auction, a speculator might grab it and dump a billboard or cell tower behind our back fences. We decided to act preemptively. Diego crunched the numbers. The unpaid tax plus penalty came to a sum smaller than a used ATV. I floated the idea of pooling resources to buy Parcel C as a neighborhood trust. Carissa upped the ante. What if we turned it into a public art and pollinator garden? Bee boxes, native grasses, and murals visible from the Greenway Trail. Everyone loved it. We gathered in my dining room with coffee and oatmeal cookies, signed a simple operating agreement Ruth drafted, and scraped together funds within 48 hours. At the county auction, held online with all the drama of clicking Confirm Payment, the Laurel Lane Trust outbid 2 random investors and 1 Parcel C. It may have been the most anticlimactic victory of the saga, but it felt like planting a flag. A month later, we broke ground, shovels digging into clay, Carissa sketching a monarch butterfly design for the retaining wall. Kids from the subdivision helped paint under adult supervision, laughter echoing across the disputed map lines. December brought the final hearing on our slander of title suit. By then, Greener Horizons HOA was a ghost in legal limbo, its last board members resigning en masse. The developer's insurer had already cut a large check to settle the stormwater penalties. All that remained was closing our case. Ruth argued damages succinctly, the judge nodded, and a modest but satisfying figure rolled our direction, enough to reimburse legal fees and seed the pollinator garden's upkeep for decades. When the gavel fell, I felt something inside unclench like a fist opening after gripping too long. Outside the courthouse, snowflakes drifted under streetlights. Edna twirled, rooster scarf trailing. Henry shook Diego's hand. Carissa snapped a selfie of the group. Owl patch, paint-flecked jacket, courthouse steps, her phone capturing wide smiles lit by frosty breath. On Christmas Eve, we held a lantern walk through Parcel C, now cleared and mulched. stepping carefully along temporary paths edged with evergreen boughs. Neighborhood kids carried mason jars glowing with LED candles. I gave a short toast. Here's to boundaries respected, wetlands protected, and neighbors connected. They cheered, clinking travel mugs of hot cocoa. Later, back home, I added a new line beneath the brass plaque on my porch, engraving it myself with a Dremel tool, property watched by owls, roosters, and free people. We never set out to wage a war. We only wanted quiet yards, quirky fences, lawn flamingos if we felt like it. But standing alone is tough. Standing together is thunder. For anyone who thinks they can redraw someone else's deed with forged ink and pastel paint swatches, well, Laurel Lane begs to differ. I thought the chapter was closed after Parcel C lit up with lanterns, but quiet neighborhoods are dull meat to hungry opportunists. In early March, mud season around here, a glossy trifold showed up taped to every storm door on Laurel Lane. It featured a photograph of the old model home, angles polished by wide-angle lens and sunset filter, under a headline in swoopy gold script, "The Magnolia Manor Luxury Retreats Trademark Now Booking." I snorted coffee through my nose. Last we'd checked, the model home was empty, its furniture carted off during HOA liquidation. A quick URL search revealed the place listed on half a dozen short-term rental platforms, advertised as sleeping up to 20 guests, complete with outdoor jacuzzi, fire pit, event lawn, and ample street parking. Street parking, of course, meant our curb. Within 48 hours, the first weekenders arrived. 12 college-age revelers hauling coolers the size of coffins. By sunset, an amp on the makeshift patio thumped bass so hard my windows shivered. At 11 p.m., Carissa texted, "Decibel meter app hitting 97 dB in my bedroom." At midnight, the party migrated onto the sidewalk. Someone attempted karaoke to a song that lost the key, the tempo, and all dignity. I called the non-emergency police line. Officer Peters showed up, issued a polite warning, and left. Noise resumed within 10 minutes. By 2 a.m., the smell of burning marshmallows, and possibly something greener, drifted through my upstairs vents. When headlights finally peeled away near dawn, they left behind a lawn littered with red Solo cups and a smoldering patch where the fire pit had toasted more than s'mores. At Saturday breakfast, Liberty Rooster convened on my porch. Diego flipped through the rental listing. 6 bedrooms, 5 baths, he muttered, pointing. But the county occupancy code caps overnight guests at 12 for that zoning class, not 20. He scrolled further. They also claim the jacuzzi seats 15. I didn't know such a tub existed outside cruise ships. Edna peered over her bifocals, clutching a thermos of chai. I measured at first light. Jacuzzi's 6 feet across, so 15 guests would be stacked like rolled socks. Henry, who'd brought blueberry muffins as reparations for his earlier fence sitting, added, "Short-term rentals require registration and tax remittance. I checked the county's portal. No permit on Magnolia Manor. Score 1, but shutting down a rogue rental isn't quick. We needed noise logs, occupancy evidence, and proof of illegal commercial use. A plan formed like rain clouds. We turned the weaponized party house into proof that stubborn neighbors can beat greed with paperwork, patience, and a dash of paint. It started with evidence gathering. Carissa mounted a motion camera on her garden gnome. Diego hid a decibel logger behind a birdhouse to flag anything louder than 65 dB after 10 p.m. And I trawled the short-term rental calendars, screenshotting every brag that the place could sleep 20, 8 more than zoning allowed. Ruth, our attorney friend, bundled screenshots, decibel spikes, and forged guest counts into complaints for the county zoning board and the state lodging authority. Edna, retired librarian turned bloodhound, discovered the shell owner, Mariposa Ventures, hadn't paid a dime of hotel-motel tax. We estimated 15 grand owed for 1 quarter. Financial pressure loaded. We waited for violations to stack. Cue the bachelorette party. Feather boas, pink limo, karaoke shrieking, shots, shots, until Officer Peters ticketed them at 1 a.m. Strike 2 in 30 days. Strike 3 arrived the next Friday when a truck dropped 20 unattended propane cylinders, violating fire code. Henry, our reformed fence sitter, rang my bell, quoting the 20-foot ignition rule. The fire marshal confiscated the tanks and plastered a bright orange imminent hazard notice on the door. Guests tailgated in the cul-de-sac, music blaring. Peters returned, citations flew, and we collected the footage like trophies. Monday, Ruth filed everything. By Wednesday, an emergency hearing yanked Magnolia Manor's rental rights, imposed $500 a day fines retroactive to the first complaint, and referred Mariposa for a tax audit. The LLC's lawyer blinked and announced they'd dumped the property as is, liens and all. The price nosedived. Carissa proposed turning the empty model home into a community art hub. Our pollinator garden on Parcel C was thriving, but we lacked indoor space. A crowdfunding blast, Put Brushes Not Bachelorettes in Magnolia Manor, raised $22,000. Diego negotiated with the bank for a $68,000 fire sale. Ruth closed pro bono, and Laurel Creative Commons owned the deed. We ripped out the whirlpool tub, carved a ceramic studio from the marble foyer, soundproofed 2 bedrooms for recording booths, and swapped the fire pit lawn for an herb spiral and butterfly puddling pond. Local news adored the Airbnb to DIY flip. Our late summer arts fair drew kids silkscreening owl logos while Henry tied fly fishing lures. Even Lacey, the ex-HOA president with court-ordered community service, pulled thistles beside Edna, sweating off past sins. Peace settled until a trademark infringement letter arrived from Stoneflower Resorts, claiming our hashtags diluted their newly filed Magnolia Manor luxury retreats. Ruth could have battled, but Carissa suggested rebirth. Name-storming on a whiteboard filled with rooster doodles and owl sketches birthed the Roost and Roar Collective. Too quirky for corporate confusion, we filed our own state trademark, changed the sign, and Stoneflower's threat fizzled like a damp firework. Winter wrapped Parcel C in snow, studio windows glowing amber at dusk. One icy night, a padded envelope arrived, a brass key and a note. For whatever comes next, may your locks stay your locks. A fellow freeholder. No one claimed it, but I hung it beside the brass porch plaque that still reads, "Private property. Knock for cookies, not covenants." The developer still owns a few unsold lots and investors sniff around. Yet our decibel loggers are charged, bylaws studied, friendships soldered. If someone tries to redraw our boundaries again, they'll find owl footprints and rooster scratches already set in the concrete. So if a neon sticker ever threatens your front porch, remember Nolan from Laurel Lane. Brew a mug of stubborn, dive into public records, rope in your neighbors, and read the fine print louder than any karaoke at 2 a.m. Because property lines stay imaginary until someone who cares traces them. Permanent ink, bold stroke, no eraser needed. Friends, thank you. See you soon.